Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I stand before you today to ask for your support for House Bill 2328, which is the General Fund Appropriation Bill for the fiscal year 2014-2015. This is a balanced proposal which helps move Pennsylvania forward. This is a spending plan that formalizes the House priorities as the budget process continues, and also puts the feedback that we've heard from our residents into a responsible budget proposal. This is also a spending plan that again makes record-setting investments in public education. I have appreciated the opportunity to work with all members of this House, as well as the Democratic Chair of the Appropriations Committee and all the members of the committee. This is not the end of the discussion, and I'm sure our friends in the other chamber will make some changes to this plan, but this is an important step forward to getting a fourth on-time budget. Ladies and gentlemen, despite some substantial fiscal challenges, this budget once again dedicates a record-setting $10.3 billion in pre-K to 12 education funding. This represents an increase of over $300 million. We look at the state education funding over the last several years, and since the previous administration's budget in 2010 and 2011 appropriated $8.8 billion in state funds. Today, this budget will appropriate $10.3 billion in state funds for education. That is a $1.4 billion increase in state funds under this administration. Let's all be clear. Over the last several years, there has been much talk about cuts in education. I can assure you those cuts were not made by the state. I certainly understand there was line items that were decreased, some were repealed, but the overall spending in education has increased. We were forced to deal with the loss of $1 billion in federal stimulus funds in 2011 and 12, but we stepped up to the plate and increased state funds and have completely replaced all the lost federal stimulus money with state tax dollars. Education has been and will always be Pennsylvania's top priority. As we all know, Pennsylvania faced a series of economic challenges in 2013-14. First, from the loss of $322 million FMAP contributions and the changes in the federal tax law that resulted in an unanticipated decline in our Pennsylvania income tax collections, resulting in a total shortfall for the fiscal year 2013-14 of over $500 million. Pennsylvania is not alone in seeing these tough, declining tax collections as a result of the federal tax changes. In fact, 38 of 41 states that impose broad-based personal income taxes had a decline in collections when compared to last year. Even our independent fiscal office, which is a nonpartisan entity, did not see this revenue decline coming. All these combined problems, and add to it a large cost to carry, left Pennsylvania with a large hole to fill since February's 4th governor's budget proposal. But we were able to craft a plan that deals with these hurdles and still being able to provide for the needs of our Pennsylvania residents. House Bill 2328, ladies and gentlemen, has a total spend of state tax dollars, $29.1 billion for the fiscal year 2014-15. This is an increase of $536 million or a 1.9% increase over the current year. This budget is in balance and assumes a revenue growth of 3.2% for 14-15. This is the same growth that the Independent Fiscal Office has projected in their June 16th official revenue estimates. In addition, there is a series of transfers, lapses, and other revenue options exercised to make sure that this budget is in balance. I am proud of the work that we've done to craft a spending plan that increases our commitment to public education, creates a new grant program for students seeking higher education, appropriates more money to train new state troopers, and commits more money to helping the elderly and, most important, the disabled. This spending plan commits the highest amount of money ever spent for K-12 education at $10.3 billion. As I said earlier, this is an increase of $323 million, the highest ever. Included in this budget is $70 million more for basic education. This plan keeps the governor's original proposal of $20 million increase for special education. Pre-K counts will receive an additional $8.7 million under this plan, and will also add $10 million for our school districts for constructions and renovations of our school buildings. I know this line item has been a priority for our members on both sides of the aisle, and this is once again a priority in this plan. This general fund appropriation would see that Pennsylvania spends a total of $1.67 billion for all higher education-related programs. Pennsylvania state grant system will receive $344 million in state grants, and a new $5 million appropriation will be added to award middle-income students merit-based grants for 2- or 4-year universities. I also, at this time, I want to thank the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency for an outstanding job that they're doing, and will assist the state grant program with approximately $100 million of their earnings, so our students will be able to receive additional grant money. House Bill 2328 makes key increases to help those less fortunate, whether they are elderly, disabled, or intellectually disabled. The Department of Public Welfare's budget will increase by $177 million. A large driver for this increase, however, has been the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, as well as other increasing mandatory costs. Included in this budget proposal is $13.28 million to provide home and community-based services to an additional 1,250 individuals with intellectual disabilities, as well as autism. This is truly an historic and important investment. This proposal will also use $11.6 million of new lottery funds, which will continue our current services and expand to over 1,700 older Pennsylvanians. House Bill 2328 also keeps the 10% increases for domestic violence and rape crisis centers line items that were originally proposed in the governor's budget. I know residents across the Commonwealth were interested in this line item, and I have received many letters and emails from members of this House pushing for that increase. Making sure that our state agencies have the necessary funds to protect our environment is an important priority for many in this chamber. This budget commits an additional $10.4 million for the Department of Environmental Protection. This increase breaks down to $1.9 million for environmental program management, $7.3 million for environmental protection operations, and finally, $1.6 million for the general government operations. I am also happy that this bill restores funding to many of the line items that you, the members of this House, have championed. Those line items include diabetes programs, ag research, ag excellence, Pennsylvania Preferred Program, epilepsy, ALS. These are all line items that have been in the budget for years and will continue under 23-29. This is a solid spending plan that puts the priorities of our citizens first and makes sure we are being good fiscal stewards of the taxpayers' money. This is a spending plan that adds important investments to education, human services, and public safety. I've appreciated the opportunity to work with members of this chamber, as well as the administration, in crafting this budget. This is not the end of the discussion, and I'm sure the Senate will make some changes, but we will be there negotiating with them. But this is an important step forward, ladies and gentlemen, to getting a fourth on-time budget. Thank you very much for this time. Thank you.